And coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Welcome to the show. I'm Chris Pardo, right here, coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify or one of those as well. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. Lots to talk about today. NFL talk today. And we're also going to talk about some college football. The college football weekend coming up again. We're going to take a look at 5 games that we kind of look at here and say, these are 5 games we want to take a closer look at and kind of give you some thoughts and ideas on how you might want to start thinking about betting on the games as well. Of course, it's Thursday, and of course, during the NFL season, Thursday means Thursday night football. And of course, tonight, no different. 2 teams that lost last week, Washington and the New York Giants, both lost. Giants looked terrible losing. They were actually disappointing. Washington, they kind of held their own there for a while, but, as long as Fitzpatrick's out, there's a good possibility that line may change in either direction. So we're going to talk about that. And like I said, some college football. No baseball to talk about today, except how we turned out yesterday with our results for yesterday. We'll bring you up to date on that. But no new picks today because there's nothing to pick from. So, there are games, but the pros didn't see there were anything worthwhile value-wise to bet for today. So that's the story as far as that's concerned. And of course, like we say, the first thing we're going to do is take a look at what happened yesterday in Major League Baseball, because the Padres, a slight minus 104 underdog, they beat the Giants 9-6 late Wednesday last night, snapping the Giants' 9-game winning streak. So now what does that mean? If you're into following streaks, the Giants streak came to an end. Generally, and we've talked about this before, last couple of times, it worked very, very well. But we're talking about what is called the swagger theory in this situation. The swagger theory basically says that if a team is in a winning or a losing streak, and once they come out of that streak, the following day they wind up whatever they did before. So if they're on a losing streak and they won, they'll probably win the next game. If they're on a winning streak and they lost, they are apt to lose the next game. So if you're into that, the thing to look at today is the Giants game for today and betting against them today. But that's up to you. That is the swagger theory. It all has to do with, how streaks are concerned. And again, not everybody plays them. If you're one of the guys out there that does, just bringing it to your attention. And more than likely, if you do play it routinely, you probably know yourself that they got beat yesterday. But just as a reminder to some of the new people out there that, looking for something different to bet on, they're going to look at that possibility as well. Now, the favorites went 8-7 on the day, and they lead over the season so far at 59.3%. Because 51 games closed as a pick'em as well. And keep in mind, when we talk about lines and pick'ems, we're talking about Las Vegas numbers. Now, the biggest upsets of the day were the Tigers once again, plus 210 against the Brewers. The Angels are plus 193 against the White Sox. And the Rockies, our Denver team here, are plus 183 against the Braves. So you see the big difference when you're betting on an underdog in baseball, and baseball, like we say, is primarily a money line sport. And we talked about the Tigers the day before also. They're a very good dog team this year. If you're following the Tigers all season long and bet them in situations where they were dogs, you did pretty well so far going towards the end of the season. Tigers plus 210 on the money line against the Brewers. Angels up there at plus 193, and the Rockies, who are closing up there through most of the season as well, at plus 183 against the Braves. Now, the overs went 7-4-4 yesterday. Yeah, that's right. There were 4 pushes. That's, again, we're talking about Las Vegas numbers. 4 pushes. The Rays and the Blue Jays at 9, the Astros and the Rangers at 9, and the Reds and the Pirates at 9, and the Diamondbacks Dodgers at 8. They all landed on the closing total. So the under slim lead has been really cut down to 50.1%. Just 3 games over 500 on the season so far as the unders are concerned. Very strange to have 4. If you have 3, it's a lot, but to have 4 pushes on that particular number on the overs is very, very rare. But it did happen yesterday, and hey, like anything else, there's a good possibility anything can happen. So that's the story as far as what happened yesterday. And of course, yesterday we gave you 3 selections that the pros were on yesterday. You had that early game, which we try to get you in on as soon as possible. Miami against Washington, that 1 o'clock game, 1:10 game, whatever. Okay, the pros like Miami on that one. And if you listen to the show, you know we told you about that before the game actually started. So it's not like we're, oh, yeah, they won, so you're going to say they won, right? No, they did. They had Miami over Washington in that game. Reds against the Pirates, they had the Reds in that game. And the one loser was the Cardinals and the Mets. They still stick with the Mets. Meanwhile, the Cardinals were the winner in that game. So yesterday we had 3 plays. We had 2 winners, 1 loser. The day before that, we had 3 plays, 3 losers. The day before that, we had 1 play and a winner. The day before that, 2 plays, 1 and 1. So now for the month of September, right now, we're at 50%. 24 plays so far, 12 winners. You're at 50% as far as the pros are with their selections that we try to give you every day on the show. So that's the story there. We have nothing to talk about today except the game coming up tonight between the Giants and Washington. And also we're going to bring you up to date on some college football games that are coming up on Saturday as well. Ones that you should really take a close look at. They're going to be big games to look at, and we're going to kind of give you some thoughts and ideas in that direction. And if we have some time left, I know yesterday we spent a good deal of time talking about power rankings. In case you missed that show, just going to quickly go over that for you so that he can bring you up to date on that as well. Power rankings in the NFL as well. So let's get that first break and let's get it out of the way. So this way when we come back, we could talk about the big game tonight. The Washington football team against the New York Giants. So we'll be back in the zone in 1 minute. And here we go again. Welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening today. It's Thursday, and Thursday, when you get into September, October, November, December, Thursday night is NFL night. Thursday night football tonight. The Washington football team against the New York football Giants. But in the meantime, just a reminder, you're listening to us live right here from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City, on I-95, the Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting. Yes, we podcast on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts or Google or iHeartRadio, Spotify, you name it. You can find us very, very easily. So let's get down to business. Tonight's game, the New York Giants, Washington football team. Both teams lost already, right? So this is an 8 o'clock game, 8:20, 8:25, somewhere in there. It's a Thursday night football game that features a pair of really, I mean, they've been division rivals as far as I can remember, looking to bounce back because last week, not only were their opening week losses disappointing, especially for Washington and New York, but the Giants really, they were manhandled by the Broncos. They lost 27-13. They didn't cover. They were 3-point home dogs in that game. And of course, they look outrageously terrible. I called it the worst defense money could buy. And also Washington, they lost to the Chargers, although they did pretty well. They lost 20-16, but they were at least in the game. They lost outright as 2-point home favorites. And we talked about that game all week long because actually Washington started out as a 2-point dog when they first opened up. Then it started getting closer and closer to the point where finally they came down as a 2-point home favorite. Now at BetMGM, the Giants' updated season win total has been switched to 5.5, with the over being juiced to -145, which is kind of strange. Washington's updated win total is 7.5, with the under being juiced to -120. A lot of that has to do probably with Fitzpatrick being hurt, because the line opened with Washington listed as a 4.5-point home favorite. But with Ryan Fitzpatrick out for the game and backup Taylor Heineke is going to be starting, okay, respected money, the pros, they pounced on the Giants right away, taking those points. And when they did that, of course, they came in with their money, dropped the line from being a 4.5 to a 3.5-point favorite. So they're on the dog here. Now, several shops are juicing up the Giants at 3.5 to -115, which means that if you do like the Giants and you want to bet them, you better get in there soon, because that number will more than likely fall down to 3 before game time. So if you're looking to back the Giants, you better do it real soon before that whole number changes, okay? That way, a 3-point Giant loss will result in a cover instead of a push, okay? So take a look at there. Now, on the other side, of course, if you like Washington in this game, you'd be inclined to wait to see if it goes to 3, because that'll be to your advantage. That was a 3-point win push instead of a loss. So depending on how you feel, if you're going to be, you think you like Washington, wait and see what happens. If you like the Giants, you better get in there soon, or you're going to lose that 0.5 point. The Giants check off several boxes as far as analysis goes and as far as the analytical situation is concerned. They check several boxes if you're a value-minded bettor. New York is contrarian in this game. It's going to be heavily bet. It's a primetime game. It's the only game in town. It's only action in town. Yeah, there's some baseball. There's going to be a little bit of golf starting up as well. But most of the money, probably 90% of the money coming in, is going to be on this particular game. And just under 2/3 of the bets are laying the points with Washington at home. So the Giants are also a divisional dog in a low total game. They're looking for a lower total in this game. Now, divisional matchups provide an edge to the dogs as the built-in familiarity, because they play against each other more often. They've already played on the opposition's field. So it really leads to more closer games, which benefits the team that's getting the points. Okay, you get it? Because they're in the same division. They play each other twice. They played each other for years and years. They're familiar with the surroundings, and low totals benefit the dogs as the fewer amount of points are going to be expected. And if it's going to be that way, it's going to make it harder for the favorite to cover that number. Now, dogs went 12-4 against the spread. That's 75% the first week. Not only that, but teams coming off a week one loss of 10 points or more have gone 67, almost 68% in week two over the past 10 years. So I'll give you a kind of look in that direction. So all the analytics seem to be pointing to the Giants. Now, this speaks to the importance of not falling victim to recency bias, because when two winless teams face off, the dog is at almost 59%. And that's, again, over 10 years, okay? The lead ref, Scott Novak, has historically favored road teams. He's almost at 60% in those type of games. Now, one injury to look at here. Saquon Barkley is really going to be questionable for this game tonight. So you got to really think about it. And he didn't get to play that much last week as well, or Sunday. We could also be looking at that low-scoring game. The total opened at 42.5, which is low to start with. It's already dropped to 40.5, despite a majority of the public betting going on the over. And again, the public loves over numbers, okay? They love homes. They like favorites, home teams, overs. Now, this signals that the pros have a reverse line movement on the under, and so they're going on the under in this game as well. Now, primetime unders were at almost 59% last season, and both of these teams went under in week one. So the unders went 9-7 across the entire NFL during week one. So to let you know, that game coming up tonight, the pros, they love the Giants in this game, but also all the analytical information coming out, all the data that we have over the past 10 years points towards the Giants covering in this particular situation. So again, that's all the information. You deal with it. You deal with what you think is more important than the other. Make your final guesses, make your final wagers. But like I said, if you like the Giants, if you're leaning in that direction, you'd better get in there real soon, because that line will more than likely drop to 3, may have dropped in your area. Just all depends where you are. And also, if you like Washington, just sit back, because the lower that line drops, the better it's going to be for you. So that's the story for tonight. That's the story about the only NFL game on tap for today, Thursday night, as usual. So let's take that second break. Let's get it out of the way. And when we come back, we're going to take a quick look at some power rankings. And, of course, we want to talk some college football also as well. 5 games we want to take a close look at and tell you about as well. So, as usual, we take 1 minute. That's all the break is. So if that's the case, we'll be back in the zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. Here we go. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live right here, the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Yes, we are. So let's take a look at some power rankings. We know about the game for tonight. Once again, if you tuned in late, the pros are on the Giants in this game tonight. all or almost most of all the analytics that pertain to this game are also in the favor of the Giants as well. So let's take a quick look, because yesterday I went into detail, but today I just want to give you a general idea as to what's going on. We're talking about power rankings. In order to be a really successful handicapper, you have to come up with a system of power rankings. Most people will do it on their own. It's a hard job. You have to take a lot of things into consideration. And of course, then you have to think about what you think is important. What data should go into a power ranking? Now, three of the best power ranking that I've ever seen through the years, as far as numbers go, are the New York Post, which is a newspaper in New York. Okay. Also, you have the NFL Report Daily, okay, on NBC, NFL Today, they do it as well, okay, and of course over at USA Today, they have a guy who really does a great job of power rankings. Now, if you take a look at all three or four of them, you're going to see there's not going to be very much difference as far as maybe the first two or three are concerned, because most of them are using primarily the same type of information, and then they kind of drift off a little bit in their own way to go another way. But if you look at all three of them, and those are the three big ones, if you take a look at them, you can see they're pretty close. Yeah, they might be, so the Post may have Kansas City Chiefs as number one. Someone else may have Tampa Bay. USA Today may have Tampa Bay number one, Kansas City number two. Just all depends on what factors they're using to determine what those power rankings are going to be. So let's take a look at and see what happened. As far as the New York Post is concerned, the number one team they think in the power rankings is Kansas City. Again, they're saying that 75-yard touchdown pass from Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill looked so easy, so simple, okay? 9 points in the fourth quarter. It looked for a while there, like it was going to go the other way. Of course, Kansas City did not cover in that game. We all know that. But, of course, they almost lost that game also. But they're number one as far as the Post is concerned. Number two, they like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, okay? Tom Brady, again, as you got down to those last 2 minutes of the last minute and a half, and Brady's coming and he's going to be the quarterback, and that he's going to do everything he can, and he's very successful most of the time in pulling off the win. Now, of course, they didn't cover, but at least they did win the game. So Tampa Bay is in the number two position. Number three of the Los Angeles Rams. Now, before the season started, a lot of hype. Oh, here comes Matthew Stafford. He was underrated. He was a Detroit. He was so much better than he looked like, is because the team around him was terrible. He'll probably be an MVP candidate this year. Well, you know what? After watching that game the other night, Los Angeles does look, and Matthew does look like a really top-notch quarterback with a good team under him. So the Los Angeles Rams have come in to number three. Number four, the Cleveland Browns, even though they lost, okay? But you know what? It didn't take long for that first winless team to appear, that's for sure. But the Browns led two-time defending champion Chiefs on the road most of the game. Remember, twice in their last two games that they could have beaten the Chiefs, this time and one time last year. They just lost by one play. They were one play away from possibly winning. This time, remember, if you watch the game, it was a drop punt snap, and that kind of hurt them in that direction, or they would have won the game and perhaps may have moved up into another slot. But they're at number four, even though they did lose, and they're the only team with a loss that are in the top 10. Number five, you have the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson was the MVP of the first half of last season. Okay. Remember all the trouble he was talking about? He wanted to be traded because the offensive play calling was too run heavy. Well, you know what? In this game, they threw the ball 23 times. He got 4 touchdowns. And they also ran the ball 50 times. And that was primarily to chew up that clock so the Colts couldn't get back on the field. So at number 5, you had the Seahawks. Number 6, San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, they did win. The good news is they held a 24-point fourth quarter lead, but the bad news was they somehow needed that late defensive stop to prevent the Lions from actually tying the score. It was strange to see the Kyle Shanahan team lose their focus the way they did. San Francisco, number 6 in the rankings. Number 7, the New Orleans Saints. Okay. Yeah, Drew Brees isn't there anymore. In fact, the question is, who's Drew Brees? Okay. But the first game without Drew and their future Hall of Famer, things couldn't have really gone much better. Okay. Remember, Sean Payton has a reputation that quarterbacks are the way he handles it. They call him the quarterback whisperer. Okay. And he really did very, very well here because he took Jameis Winston, threw 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions in that 38-3 game. Now, if you followed Jameis Winston throughout the years, you know he gets intercepted a lot. He throws some touchdowns, but he throws more interceptions than he does touchdowns. So for that first game, for him to look that good, you got to give that credit to Sean Payton. New Orleans at number 7. Number 8, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, some people forgot that last year Pittsburgh was 11-0 in the first part of the season. Then they lost 5 of their last 6 games, including that last game against the Browns. If you remember that first quarter, that was absolutely miserable. Okay. But now they upset the Bills. Okay. 2 touchdowns in 3 minutes. So it's an ugly win, but you know what? Ugly counts. Doesn't make any difference. Ugly, beautiful, you win, they all count. Number 9, you have the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah, that means that the 4 teams in the NFC West are in the top 10. The Cardinals could win a few divisions, but in this particular division, they're probably going to finish 4th. Okay. Kyler Murray had a great day, 4 touchdowns. Unbelievable. And finally, at number 10, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers needed that John Madden video game setting where you turn injuries off. Because just once, going back to the LaDainian Tomlinson days, it would be nice to see this team being healthy. And, maybe it looks like it's going to be now. Justin Herbert played a smart, not a sexy game, but a smart game. He shrugged off the West to East travel thing. Okay. He beat the NFC East champion Washington team as well. So Los Angeles at number 10. So those are the top 10. That's as far as we want to go because we spent a whole bunch of time on them yesterday. Just want to make sure, in case you missed the show yesterday, kind of let you know about that and how important it is for you to follow power rankings. And you got to make these power rankings a part of your system, whatever it happens to be, in choosing games and teams to bet on. So that's the story there. So let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at a couple of college football games, kind of give you an idea as to, take a look at 5 games because we're going to take a look at the lines. There's some movement already in these 5 games. So we'll take a look at those and we'll tell you all about them. So let's get that third break finally out of the way. And when we come back, we'll be talking college football. So we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. Here we go again. We're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo coming to you live from the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Okay. We're looking at college football. We talked about the game for tonight. Giants against Washington. Pros are on the Giants. All the analytics pointing to the Giants as well. And like we said earlier, the numbers look like they may change before game time. So if you like the Giants, you better get in there soon because the number's going down, if it does at all. If you like the Washington Redskins, sit back and relax. If it does go down to 3, maybe down to 2.5, you're going to be better off in that situation as well. But in the meantime, let's look at some college football games. We have 5 games that we kind of think could be the best games for the weekend coming up this Saturday. Now, looking at these lines, first of all, number 1 Alabama playing number 11 Florida. Alabama, a 15.5-point favorite in this game so far. Now, there's a quarterback controversy in Florida, even if head coach Dan Mullen, he's not going to say it is, but there is, no doubt about it. Freshman Anthony Richardson dazzled when he replaced starter Emory Jones against South Florida on Saturday. And although he appeared to tweak his hamstring, whether it surfaces against Alabama or not is not going to be going away. Alabama, on the other side, failed to cover. They were 54.5-point favorites against Mercer College in that 48-14 win against them. Quarterback Bryce Young looked sharp, although now he's going to hit the road for the first time as a starter, and he has to deal with what will be a very, very hostile environment down there in Florida, okay? Now, while Bama is a machine, there's no doubt about it, it won't shock if this one is perhaps a little closer than you think it's going to be. You look at it, see what you think. Meanwhile, number 8 Cincinnati, playing at Indiana, Cincinnati being a 3.5-point favorite. Now, I've had this game, and I was talking about it to my friends for a lot of months beforehand, and it's very significant. And what we were talking about really hasn't changed, because for Indiana, having been blown out by Iowa at home, as a 3.5-point favorite in that first week, this is a chance to get right in a real quick hurry. For Cincinnati, however, fresh off 2 blowouts against really inferior teams, this is a chance to kind of validate its place in the AP poll at number 8 and go towards consideration as a possibility for the college football playoffs. So this is a big game for both teams. One wants to show that they aren't as bad as they look. The other one is saying, hey, we really look good, and we want to prove it to you. The fact that a top 10 team is only laying a small amount, that 3.5, against an unranked team, kind of draws some interesting action. Said, while I've been somewhat down on the Hoosiers, I'm certainly intrigued by the dog in this game and how this line moves. So I'll keep a close eye on this one. Number 10, Penn State against number 22, Auburn. Penn State being a 6.5-point favorite. Now, I want to take a minute just to say how much I appreciate this game and the fact that it's being played on a college campus. Now, with that out of the way, let me transition to praising Penn State. I thought that the Lions might let down against Ball State after beating Wisconsin, although they cruised to a 44-13 win, and they covered as 22.5 points on the spread. Now, that's a real telling win, which is not something we have with Auburn right now. The Tigers are 2-0, and they have outscored opponents 122-10. Those opponents, they were Akron and Alabama State. The running game, led by Tank Bigsby, should be a quality test of this game. I actually could see the defense being the theme of the game in this particular game. Arizona State against BYU. Number 19, Arizona State, 23, BYU. Now, for BYU, it's like deja vu all over again. The Cougars are 2-0 this season. Both those wins have come against the Pac-12. Now, they didn't cover the opening game against Arizona, although they followed that one with a real performance against Utah in week number 2. Now, BYU won outright as a touchdown underdog in that game. And for what it's worth, I kind of liked Utah in that game, and so did the pros. Now, that was a mistake, no doubt about it. Now, but this week, that spread has largely condensed. Arizona State cracked the top 20 in the AP poll, and although the Sun Devils struggled early in week 2 against UNLV before they finally pulled away in the second half, they didn't cover the 5-touchdown spread. Now, all the turnaround was really noteworthy. One player to watch here, Jaron Hill, the BYU quarterback. He was a force as a runner and also as a passer against that Utah team. Now, if ASU can't figure him out this week, look out. BYU may be on the march. And then finally, another game to look at, number 12 Notre Dame against Purdue. 7-point favorite for Notre Dame. I know what you're thinking. This is really a top 5 game this weekend. But the answer to that question, as far as I'm concerned, maybe. At the very least, it's in the running for one of the top games. And after a pretty woeful showing against Toledo as a 16.5-point favorite, the Irish are now just a touchdown favorite against Purdue. And the Boilermakers just beat UConn, of all teams, 49-0. They were 35-point favorites in that game, which doesn't tell us much about that game as well. Now, I loved what I saw from Purdue against Oregon State, okay? And while the win won't get a ton of attention, I kind of look at it real close. On the other side, Notre Dame's big win over Florida State in the first week suddenly feels not as well as I thought at the time. The Seminoles lost to Jacksonville State. Okay, and they might be the most interesting piece of data to process before you place your bet. So Notre Dame, Purdue, that's one of the games to look at. Another one we like, Arizona State against BYU, Penn State against Auburn, Cincinnati, Indiana, and of course the Crimson Tide against Florida. That's going to be a very interesting game, to say the least. So just to wrap up for today, as far as tonight's game is concerned, looking at the numbers, right now, as we see in Las Vegas, the line is at 3 to 3.5, depending on which house you're looking at. The chances of it going to 3 across the board are very, very good. And then there's always that possibility it may drop down to 2.5. So once again, if you like the Giants in this game, you better get in there as soon as you can, because that number is not going to go up. It's going to come down. On the other hand, if you like Washington, like I said, sit back and relax, enjoy the day, because that number may drop may drop more times. And then, of course, that'll be to your advantage as well. So that's the story for today. Thanks again for listening. I hope you have been having a great Thursday so far, and I hope it continues to be a great Thursday for you as well. Now, if you're betting that game tonight or some baseball or golf, whatever, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you do very, very well in there as well. So until tomorrow, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, we'll be back again at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Saturdays and Sundays, we're here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So once again, have a great Thursday. If you're betting today, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you do okay. And of course, we'll be back again tomorrow to talk about what happened today. We'll dissect that Washington Giants game, and we'll see what comes out of it then. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the I-95 Sports Network and most of your podcast platforms such as Apple, Spotify, Google as well. Goodbye, everybody.